Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 85 of B-Road Ballers, the review series for the hatchbacks of Gran Turismo, predominantly those with more of a performance inclination, be it traditional hot hatches or sleeper hatches, ones which aren't necessarily hot visually with body kits and wings and that kind of stuff, but they may actually be able to match, or even sometimes better, the performance of an actual hot hatch version. For instance, if you compare the 1.4 litre version in standard form of the Volkswagen Lupo to the Lupo GTI. The standard version is actually a very similar car in terms of performance and all-round ability. Now, this particular vehicle does come kind of in two forms. You've got the Mitsubishi i-MiEV and you've got the Mitsubishi i-Concept. Now, of the two versions, the i-Concept, which is the older, non-premium version, which incidentally is also the cheaper of the two, is actually the better car. It has more tuning potential, the power in tune form is almost 3 times as high, and the performance is much higher. And it's also a much more traditional fuel-driven vehicle, liquid fuel that is. Whereas this one isn't. This is a fully EV vehicle, an electric car. It's not a hybrid, it's a pure electric vehicle. And it's a car which I personally like, and I know some of you guys have talked about liking this car in the past due to its visual upgrades, and they are interesting. It's kind of strange that a car like this would have such an interesting array of visual upgrades to have. It's kind of ironic when there are arguably other cars which deserve to have better visual upgrades, whereas most people probably don't care that this one has good visuals. Now, as far as performance, and even its on-paper spec, it's not a remarkable car in any way. It's not designed to be. It's just designed to be a mass-production electric car to get Mitsubishi's toe in the water. Because, of course, as far as mass-production electric cars go, you've got Teslas, obviously, for the higher markets, but for the lower markets, Nissan really does dominate with the Leaf. This car was to rival that. And there is, if I remember correctly, also, I think it was a Peugeot version of this same car as well, which was just a rebadged version of the same thing, which of course we don't have on the game. Now, this car costs 46,000 credits, and in Gran Turismo terms, that's not that much. But for a hatchback, especially a slow one, that's quite a bit of cash, especially when the faster version is over 10 grand cheaper. So what do you get for that? Because there are undoubtedly still many people who have never driven this car. Maybe they don't like electric cars, maybe they've just never bothered to buy it. Well, of course, you have no traditional engine capacity because it's an electric motor. It weighs 920 kilos with the full weight loss package, and one of the reasons why it's perhaps not as light as you might expect it to be, given how small it is due to the battery packs required for an electric car. Battery technology is still relatively primitive when it comes to electric cars in particular, which is why they're still so heavy. It's one of the main issues that they have. But 920 kilos isn't bad. That's as light as some other hatchbacks, but the difference is those hatchbacks tend to have considerably more power, because unfortunately you cannot upgrade the electric motors of any electric car on Gran Turismo. You can upgrade some of the hybrids, but in those cases you're not actually upgrading the motor. You're upgrading the petrol side of the engine, and the motor remains the same. In the case of cars like the Prius, for instance. With this model, you've got 63 horsepower, and that's it. You cannot change that. Well, you can make it less, but you cannot make it more. Now, one of the advantages with an electric car, on Gran Turismo in particular, is that you can actually significantly reduce their power without actually affecting the top speed that much. Now, in the case of the fastest electric car, the GT by Citroën Concept, it does affect the speed. Because you're going so quick, and at those speeds you need power to overcome the air resistance and to work, of course, in tandem with the car's aerodynamic signature to give you great top-end performance. So in a car that's that fast, you do notice a big difference. In a car like this, though, or even up to and including a Tesla or even the Fisker Karma, although that's more of a hybrid, you don't really change the top-end performance by reducing the power. Of course, it does affect your acceleration, but in the case of ultra-low PP vehicles like this one, that's not really that much of a difference to make. The top speed on this car is only about 72-ish miles per hour anyway, which is similar to, again, the Nissan Leaf. Now this car, I would say, as I touched on recently in my top 5 electric cars countdown, the better choice over the Leaf or this. It is more expensive, 6 grand more than the Nissan Leaf, but the reason why I would give it the advantage is because it's lighter and more nimble. The Leaf is not a bad handling car, but it's quite a bulky car, and it's not the best for tight circuits. This vehicle can maintain a much higher average cornering speed on a track like London, for instance. London is one of the tightest courses in the game, and there are very few cars that you can really take at full speed around that track. K cars, for instance, they can manage it because they are so small, they have short wheelbases, they're small, they're light, they're compact. This car has all of those same advantages, plus the advantage that being an electric car, it never has to change gear. It's just a shame that you don't have a bit more power to fully take advantage of that. Now, although it doesn't have a huge amount of power, the torque is actually pretty good. 132 foot-pounds is actually not bad at all, and traditionally electric cars do have more torque than power, 9 times out of 10 at least, especially when you're talking mass production electric cars. Now, the horsepower per tonne is probably the least impressive thing about this car, because although the power is low at 63 horsepower, you've got to remember that's roughly the same as a K car straight out of the factory, and they're pretty quick vehicles. And having only 68 horsepower per tonne, although not impressive on paper, doesn't really affect the car that much, and the fact that you can still have the same top-end performance regardless of how much you reduce the power can actually be quite useful in low PP racing. But that's it for this pick. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.